Hey folks, BlackCross here. Welcome to a discussion video. It's been a long time since I've done a discussion video. It's been a long time since I've done one of these. But I wanted to go ahead and talk about this particular subject because of the fact that we've been having a trend this year so far, and I think there's been a trend. The trends have been going on since like the beginning of this year for a couple of games, but I think now it's more so a bigger trend than we think, and that's the fact that games are being delayed. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is actually both a good thing and a bad thing. And for a lot of people, it said it's more bad than good, right? I was like, no, actually, it's evenly both a good thing and a bad thing. Whenever you look at it at a sales point, games being pushed back could mean multiple reasons. It could be because of the fact that there's another higher selling game that's going to be out, and they're afraid that it might hurt the sales. Sometimes it could be a programmer issue, sometimes it could be a production problem. And because of that, they have to push back the game at a later date sometimes. So these games is being delayed. Needless to say, a lot of people get aggravated by it. Some people are happy that some of them get delayed because that can mean that more work is being done towards that game. And for a couple of these games that's being delayed as of right now, there is definitely that fact of more work is being done. But that also is a big factor that technically within the past couple of years since the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One started their console generation, there was a constant trend that was appearing. And I imagine that as of now, the majority of the consumer has actually started to put in their inputs, and I imagine right now it's starting to hit home with everything. So with that being said, that's probably one of the reasons why they're actually taking longer in developing some of these games, because they realize there is technically a problem that could be game breaking, or it could hurt the game entirely, and they feel like if they try to keep the original release date, that not everyone's going to get the day one patch. Because if you've not noticed, every game has had a day one patch of some kind. It can range anywhere between 500 megabytes to even over a gig probably sometimes, depending on the issue itself. And because of this constant trend of day one patches, it gets aggravating for the actual everyday gamer. For any normal casual, is no big deal. But for the everyday gamer who actually knows how these things should be done, it's kind of an annoying trend to see, and it's one that I wish they would have abolished years ago, and they would have done better in terms of like programming and better performance in game. But the sad thing is that unfortunately that's not the case here. There are companies out there who rely on stockholders to keep them afloat. These stockholders don't even play video games. They don't even know what some of these game titles are. They only know that these are by far the most popular titles out there in the market. They hear it out in the streets all the time, and they figure, oh, this is something that I should invest in then, right? And they don't even consider thinking that these games are actually more fun than they are just popular titles, you know? You don't hear why Street Fighter is popular just because it's popular. No, a lot of people enjoy the gameplay functionality. You don't realize how entertaining the majority of people who love Dark Souls and Bloodborne. They just know the name is popular enough to be invested in, and they just throw their money into it thinking that it's going to make them more money in the long run. Same thing with how Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts have been getting popular lately. They know the name is popular. They don't care if it's entertaining or not. They only know that it's going to be a popular name, and it's going to make them money in the long run. You see my point? You have these particular companies that have to rely on the stock trade investments, and if those investments don't come back to their investors, then the investors are not going to be interested in coming back to invest more in. The companies have to continue to try to release these games as soon as they can, to where that way they actually will more than likely get the money to where they can pay back their investors, and they can get their own money in the process of it. That's just the sad truth. But despite that sad truth, there is more honesty into the actual market itself. Some of these game companies have developed a very big reputation within themselves, And because of this, they realized, okay, if we just release this game as is, then it's going to hurt us in the long run. So we want to put more time in developing the game and making a better experience for the player. And that's a good thing. It's the fact that some companies don't care about the market. They only care about delivering the best that they can possibly put out for their consumers to actually be able to play. And that's good. The only problem is we're getting too much of the fact that we're getting more and more patches every day. Now I get the fact that whenever the game comes out, over time it needs a patch. That does happen. You do find game-breaking moments that can ruin the experience for many people. Thankfully, I myself have never run into any particular situation, but I do know the fact that there have been multiple scenarios of where people have talked about how the game almost braked on them, or they just couldn't move their character at all, so they had to reset the game so that way they could continue playing it. It's moments like that where once they talk about it and give their opinions to these companies, that these companies realize, okay, we need to go back in and fix this code of some kind and make it to where it doesn't happen again. What made me brought up this subject is that just recently right now, 2 games that I was waiting to hear release dates on has finally been confirmed to be delayed for 2019. I'm sure some of you guys know about it, but let me go ahead and just kind of build you up before I even go into talking about all that has been delayed. So if you remember, Code Vein was the first one to actually have an initial official full date release. Like literally, they even stated 2018 September 27th. That was a perfectly labeled date. What's weird is that later on that month that they revealed that date, they later on said it's going to be delayed. I found it weird that just barely a month had passed, and then all of a sudden they said they have to delay the game. It's weird for me, because I would understand it if it was like a Square Enix case, where Kingdom Hearts was saying to be released in 2018, and a lot of fans had looked at that 2018 for quite some time. However, this last convention that we've had back in June, all of a sudden, all that ideal and hope that we had went down relatively quickly whenever we saw January 29th, 2019. Now, I'm not saying this is actually a bad thing. More so, this does make sense considering how much we've been hearing in terms of what Kingdom Hearts 3 is going to bring out into the table. It is going to be interesting to see how much content is being brought up into it, because apparently the main reason why it got pushed back for 2019 was because of the fact of a space issue. That's right, the game apparently is bigger than the Blu-ray disc itself, which I find to be both bullshitting as well as interesting. Mostly because of the fact you're telling me there's actually a game out there that has way more than the average content for any Blu-ray disc. Now, Blu-ray disc can store a lot of data. I imagine it can store up to like 60 gigs in a single disc. That's a lot of data when you think about it. But for some reason or another, you're telling me that this is bigger than that. That's just weird to me in my opinion. But then again, this was also brought up to the simple fact that they also said this when they were developing Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I'm thinking to myself, what made you think that this was going to be way bigger than your standard Blu-ray disc game? This is stupid. You've got games like Final Fantasy 15 as well as Grand Theft Auto 5, which has beyond 50 gigs. And I would imagine those types of games in particular, yes, they have a lot of data, but because of what they actually supply in, it makes sense for why they take up so much data. And you have to think about this stuff. You really do. You have to think, okay, what makes these games have so much gigs that makes it harder for developers to put it in a single disc? And the answer is that there's just so much going on in the game. You know, there are more and more games being put in open world concept. Are any of them good? To some degree, they do a good job, but in terms of was it necessary? I think the answer would be no, it wasn't really necessary. But in terms of like how they perform and stuff, they've been really good for the most part. In fact, I would have to say that Final Fantasy 15, with the exception of like 1 or 2 bugs, but it didn't really hurt the game. If nothing else, it was just a random occurrence, and it was like, oh, okay. It makes you wonder, okay, are you telling me that Kingdom Hearts has that much data built into it? Then again, this is going to be the most flashiest game we've seen in the Kingdom Hearts series. And I say the most flashiest because area of effect is a big thing. You know, the spells like Fire, Thunder, and Blizzard are actually going to be taking an area effect look to them. You know, you cast Fire, it affects the ground. You cast Thunder, it has a very big effect towards the area. And casting Ice not only freezes the enemy, but it also makes a trail on the ground to where you can grind on it. And it's effects like that that makes you think to yourself, oh, that wouldn't do anything to the game. No, it actually will, especially depending on how finely detailed they put it. I mean, they put it so finely detailed. For the first time ever, I would have to say that this is probably the most realistic Disney game we've ever seen thus far. And that's going to be weird me saying that because Kingdom Hearts looked good on its own. But after looking at Kingdom Hearts 3 and you look at Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, they are very dated compared to Kingdom Hearts 3. Kingdom Hearts 3 is like the most advanced I think we've seen thus far. And it isn't until you think about it that you're like, yeah, with all the worlds we've got, they're way more larger. And so it's like, with these larger worlds, yeah, I guess it would take more data. And considering the fact that, according to a lot of people, they're saying there's a possibility of 3 to 4 more worlds being revealed, I'm thinking to myself, it's like, at least 2 more Disney worlds will be revealed. The other 2, yes, will be standard Kingdom Hearts worlds, like obviously Radiant Garden, and then the final world that will be taking on the Organization 13. But in terms of like official Disney worlds, I imagine we only have 2 more worlds to see before that's all we actually get to see. And then Code Vein got delayed because of gameplay functionality that they were afraid could interfere. So they wanted to take the time to take a look at it and see if they can fix it a little bit better to make it a better and smoother experience for their players. Because they know a lot of these players that play Dark Souls and Bloodborne, they know the experiences of these game-breaking glitches. Some of these glitches can sometimes be effective because of just a random gameplay functionality. Some of these other functionalities is simply because of speedrunners. Now, I'm not saying that speedrunners are bad people per se. I'm just saying they encounter more game-breaking moments because they're trying to go as fast as they can in the fastest record possible. And because of this, they encounter quite a bit of bugs within the game. You know, you think about it. Some of these games like Bloodborne and Dark Souls are not fast-paced games. Yet when it comes to a speedrunner, they try to go as fast as humanly possibly can in that game. And sometimes that can break the game to a point where the game doesn't know what's going on, doesn't know how to function, and much less keep up with the player because of how fast they go through the area. They'll run through an entire area just to get to the other end, and the game just doesn't know how to function because it's like the enemy was right there, and now it's on the other end of the map, and it's like, wait, you're not supposed to be that fast. What's going on? You get my point? The point is that speedrunners find a lot more glitches than the average gamer can. And it's like, because of the speedrunners, it's very common to see these game-breaking moments. But most recently, the most recent news that I've gotten so far comes from this past week. The first news was that Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. For those that don't know, it was talked about being released in 2018 for quite some time. Well, this past week has been officially confirmed to be delayed in 2019. I kind of figured it would be delayed, but I didn't know right off the bat because I was like, okay, there's no major news being talked about Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. When is it coming out? Is there any update video or something like that? I imagine Kickstarter knew, but even they don't know. The latest news they had was back in March, and they were saying it was still 2018. So it's like, okay, but it's been a couple of months since then. I kind of need an update here. And then Biomutant. My gosh, why did it take you so flippin' long to give us details about it? Seriously, I think the last detail it received was back in March too. but it was still saying 2018 as well. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, Biomutant, I love ya. I love how the game looks. I cannot wait to play it. But I kind of need to know the details now. Well, as of just now, recently, in Gamescom, they recently announced that it will be released summer of 2019 as well. So I was like, okay, finally, I can actually stop paying attention to gamer news. This is ridiculous. I have been starving for information about this stuff for the longest time. And then finally I get these moments where it's like, okay, here's your update. Okay, that's not what I want. I want the release date, or some kind of update as to if it's coming out or not. If you're staying in 2018, you better say it now, because before you know it, it's already November. You get what I'm saying? It's just, they get really, really slow updating people about, okay, this game is going to take a little bit more time, so we require a little bit of a push back towards 2019. At that point, I'd be like, okay, no problem. I can wait. I'm patient. You know, just update me, okay? I need to know if I need to save money now, or if I'm good for another few months, you know? It's as simple as that. Because let's face it, these games are like $60 or more, depending on if you're getting the collector's edition, because you know, it's hard to keep up with money sometimes, especially whenever you have to go to a dentist. You see my dilemma here. And while a lot of people are somewhat disappointed that some of these games are being pushed back to 2019, that just makes it 2019 being a bigger gaming year than ever before. Keep in mind, 2 games had just recently got announced for official release date. Shingeki Shadows Die Twice has officially been announced to be released March 22nd, I believe? Hold on just a sec, I wrote it down technically. Yeah, Shingeki Shadows Die Twice is going to be released March 22nd of that year. And then earlier, before that comes out, Devil May Cry 5 will be coming out March 8th. So needless to say, out of all of the months within the year, March is going to be a big one for everybody, because for fans who love Dark Souls and stuff like that, Shingeki is going to be released then. Although, seeing the latest gameplay trailers, it's not going to be more Dark Souls, but it's going to be more of his own thing than we think. In fact, I would have to say that I actually like the gameplay functionality of this game, because there is definitely more freedom in terms of roaming around the area. You know, with Dark Souls, I think Faji Vita puts it better than anything. In Dark Souls and Bloodborne, we were limited based on the area. And now we have the ability to move around the area. And I'm like, this actually makes sense. I mean, really, when you think about it, this game is amazing on its own, because we're actually free roaming around a lot more than we're used to. But then again, you play as a Shippuden, which is a ninja. So therefore, it makes sense for why you would want to move faster, because that's its character trait. They demand to be moving faster in some regard. They're stealth, but they move faster. And I have to say, after looking at the gameplay trailer, I am definitely looking forward to it. So I might pick it up as soon as it comes out. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But Devil May Cry 5... holy shit. Devil May Cry 5 is looking to be an amazing game. The latest game trailer they've had, as well as a 15-minute gameplay footage of Devil May Cry 5. As you fight the boss, the area changes. You know, the first boss you technically fight, you end up on the top roof. Then the roof caves in and you fall into it. Then, as the fight continues on, there's a big hole that opens up on the side of the church, and that fight expands even bigger than that. And it's like, is this turning into Street Fighter all of a sudden? Holy shit, because Street Fighter was the first one to where the area changes as you fight. You know, the area actually expands to some degree. But, oh my gosh, this is actually looking really, really entertaining. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, are the majority of the bosses going to be like this? Because if so, I'm looking forward to this. This is entertaining. And there was actually a moment within the game where the game kind of slowed down a bit. It was a few seconds, but you could see a lag moment. That moment in time when you realize the game is taking a lot to render everything that's going on. All the rubble that's being torn down and stuff is trying to be rendered to let people know, okay, the area is changing slightly more so than we're used to. So I'm having a hard time keeping up. So to see that, it's like, yeah, we're still seeing these problems, but it's cool to see that they're trying to push out more details into these games, and it's just, oh, Devil May Cry 5 is going to be a kick-ass game. Never mind the fact that Dante has a bike that can split into 2 freaking saws, and it's like, Dante, care to help me update here? When'd you get this? Just, okay, I knew you ride motorcycles sometimes, so obviously you decided to get yourself a motorcycle. But when did you get a fucking motorcycle that can split into 2 freaking saws? That's freaking insane. I swear, Devil May Cry 5 is going to be so good. Oh my gosh. Like I said, 2019 is going to be a big year for everybody. Never mind the fact that Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out January. Both Devil May Cry 5 and Sekekiro comes out in March. And who's to say when Code Vein, Biomutant, and Bloodstain comes out? For all I know, if they stick with the summer 2019 on Biomutant, it could be released anywhere between June or July. It could be any of those 2 months. Or it could be an August or September month. I imagine it could be that. But anyway, though, let me know in the comments below what you think about the games being delayed and everything like that. And if you feel like there needs to be some improvements, maybe they need to stop announcing these games unless it hits production, the production table, as in where it makes mass numbers of them. And I imagine that there has to be like a scenario where they're like, okay, we need to stop announcing these games until it hits the production table. When it hits the production table, then we can officially announce the game. Maybe there's some other issue that we don't know. Maybe they're thinking to themselves, okay, we're ahead of schedule, we can go ahead and announce the game right now. And then all of a sudden they hit a bump in the road and it's like, okay, something's up. But it's one of those things where it's like, there needs to be a standard when it comes to releasing official information. I mean, there are other countries out there that are forbidding pre-orders on games because this particular thing happens way more often than it should. I mean, the fact that a country's doing it, it won't be long before everybody else is doing the same thing, where they will not accept pre-orders until the game has an official 100% date. And even then, the pre-order will not be taking place prior 5 months before that game gets released. I imagine that will be a policy in the future, because quite frankly, this does get annoying, I admit, but at the same time, it's good to know that companies try to take their time in making a better experience. But anyway, I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments below. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. This is BlackCross signing off. Catch you later, guys.